it has become more and more difficult to make it as an educational creator or to make it as a content creator in general. And the time it is, or like the opportunity is shrinking. The opportunity to basically build like generational wealth. Like, sure, this is something that will stay, right? And a lot of people can do it in like 20, 30 years from now. But then it is enough to make a sustainable living from it. But to really, really get a lot of money from it, to be on the front of the wave, that time frame is shrinking. And this is basically like what is happening. So what we are basically in is a content shock, right? This is the content, and this is the time. And like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that was when most of the creators who are really big and who are living the dream life now, that is when they first started. And so a couple of years ago, there wasn't like a big supply of content. So basically this is what it looked like. There was not very little content, and then suddenly there was a lot of content, right? So but the creators, so this was basically like the supply, right? And this was the demand. And yeah, so right here, this was the supply, this was the content, and this was the demand. So in the beginning, of course, it was still very low and there was no YouTube and stuff like that. But what started to happen is here the demand was pretty high, but there were only few creators. So this was an undersupply. And then eventually people started to notice, because those creators who started many years ago, they started to get like such an amazing amount of like money and stuff like that, and they were becoming really rich because there was an undersupply. There were not many creators, but the demand was pretty high. But throughout the years, the demand has pretty much stayed the same. But there are so many new content creators basically who are posting videos like every day. Like the stats are crazy. It is, I don't know exactly what it was, but it was like something like 500 million tweets a day, and like millions of videos and millions of Instagram posts. And there are only the algorithm only shows the top 8. Like when you're watching a YouTube video, you only see the top 8 who the algorithm thinks is most relevant to you. So how can your piece of content be one of those 8 for someone, right? So this, what is here, from this part, where do I write it? Yes. So from this part to like this part is the content shock. Can you see this? Yes, barely. But this is the content shock. And how do we make the most out of this? Because it is becoming more and more difficult to stand out in this red sea of creators basically. But how do we do that? Well, that is what I'm going to explain. Cool. So there are basically three things that you can do to escape this red sea of creators and to basically build until you're one of those 8 people, one of those 8 videos, or yeah, that you can like quit your job, like just as I did, because I started not long ago, and a lot of people, new people, they are still starting and they are making it work. But how do they make it work, right? And it is still necessarily possible, absolutely possible, I mean, to build that generational wealth. And there are three things that you can do, like I said. The first one is networking. And why is this so powerful? Well, because when you are just starting out, the only people who will see your content are creators themselves, right? But if everyone is a creator, if everyone is creating content, then nobody of those creators is trying to consume content. Yeah, maybe from the big guys like Alex Hormozy or stuff like that. But otherwise, nobody is really interested in your content, because everyone is a creator themselves. Everybody is more focused on sharing their own ideas instead of consuming other people their ideas. So this is the harsh truth. Nobody cares about your content, but we can make them care about you by networking. Like if you make a strong connection with somebody and you are showing interest in them, like you are networking with them, you're building a connection with them, they don't like your ideas, they don't like your content, but they start to like you. And eventually, the eventually the more they consume your content, the more they will appreciate your ideas. So if you start to network with other people, then eventually they will appreciate your content, right? So this is one thing that we can do. And the second thing is having a like your one big idea. And this is very powerful because this is how you basically stand out in the market. I am not a huge proponent of picking a niche, because if you pick a niche, then you pin yourself down. And what if you're wrong? I think it is better to be directionally accurate than it is to be specifically inaccurate. Um, like, don't get me wrong, picking a niche is probably the best thing you can do, because that will allow you to make a lot of money. But when you are not 100% clear on your niche, and it isn't, you don't have a proven offer, then I think picking a niche is a pretty bad thing to do. Instead, but yeah, you need to separate yourself somewhat from the market so you can stand out by having a one big idea. Basically, this could be the essence of your brand, everything that you talk about. This could be like an obsession that you have. It could be the biggest problem that you've solved, or the biggest, the most valuable outcome you've achieved. Or it could be your strongest value, for example. So think about it, like what could be the one big idea? Because what starts to happen once you have this is you can relate, or you can combine all of the ideas that you have to that one big idea. For example, mine is focus, and with focus is means like everything. Focus can also be combined with philosophy, like you can make it as deep as you want, with where attention goes, energy flows. Everybody heard that, but few people understand the depth of it. That is one thing, but it can also be related to like the productivity, because you're more productive. It can also be related to business, because it directly helps each other, like the more you focus. So focus is my one big idea, but this could literally be anything, because um, another client I had, he had like differentiation as his one big idea. Also really powerful. You can connect it with pretty much everything. Another one had connection, for example, also really powerful. If you find your one big idea, you stand out with this one big idea. And if you keep talking about it again and again and again, then eventually people will start to connect that one big idea to you. Like some clients of me, they came to me and they said, it's so unbelievably powerful. They said, every time that somebody makes a post about focus, I instantly think about you. And that is basically how you solidify your brand in their brains, because a brand is basically how people will remember you. And if they can connect your brand with somebody, with something that is pretty common, like focus or connection or differentiation, then they keep thinking about you. And like I said, where attention goes, energy flows. So if a lot of people think about you for an extended amount of time, then basically all of their attention, the energy goes towards you, towards your brand. Then they might talk about it to other people, they might, and that is how your brand gets solidified. So this one big idea is a great alternative for a niche, in my opinion. So that is the second thing. You have to stand out in this market some way, and that is through this one big idea. The third thing that you can do is pretty simple. Is helping other creators. Because if there is an oversupply on content, for example, if there are so many creators who are trying to make it work but are not able to make it work, well, then there is a huge opportunity in helping these creators, right? So really think about what skills do I have, what outcomes have I achieved, which could be very beneficial for creators. Because when you're just starting out, no consumers, they see your content. Most of the time it is the creators who you network with, who are seeing your content. So or who you are networking with. So if you are going to think about how can I help other creators, and there are many ways. Like you don't necessarily have to help them with making money, for example, because that market is really saturated. I am doing that. I like the game, I like the competition, but you don't have to. Like you can do many other things. For example, when I talked about those of my previous clients, with the differentiation, you can help other creators to differentiate by being unique in their offer, in their one big idea, for example. Like that is a huge opportunity, because a lot of people, they don't stand out, they don't know how to differentiate themselves. So that is an opportunity. Another opportunity, what I mentioned, was the connection. So if you are if your strength is like connection, right? And that is also really important when you are helping other creators, because maybe people don't know how to network, right? Maybe they don't know how to speak on calls, how to be confident and comfortable when hopping on calls or making videos, and then you can help them with that. One of my clients, for example, he can help other creators by asking a lot of questions, because most people have the wrong view on coaching, because coaching isn't giving advice. Real coaches, they don't give advice. They only ask questions, and they let the other people, the other person, come up with the answer themselves. Like if you give advice, then you are a teacher, then you might be like a mentor or something like that, but not a coach. But the person who the client who I was talking about, he's really great at asking questions and like getting to the depth of the problem. And then you can help other creators by becoming better coaches, for example, by teaching them how to ask questions. So this could literally be anything. This doesn't have to be content related. What is something that you can do better than other creators? And there is something. You have an unfair advantage, and most of the time it is right under your nose. And everybody has an unfair advantage, but you are only not aware of it because it is normal to you, but not to other people. So really think about, okay, what do I receive a lot of compliments about? What tasks seem effortless to me? That is how you can basically understand your unfair advantage and how you can become more aware of it. Once you are aware of it, you know how to help other creators, and that is how you can thrive in this current market. And there is still plenty of opportunity. The time is shrinking, so you have a bit of urgency basically, but like if you don't want to become rich, if you just want to make a full-time living out of it, then it is possible in like many years from now. So then you don't really have to have this urgency. But if you do want to achieve financial freedom, then it is necessary to have some kind of urgency on it, because the door is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. So yeah, networking, having a big idea, and helping other creators is how you can thrive even during this time of the market, in this very oversaturated market. So yeah, if you have any more questions about this, then you can join my community. If you're already in the community, then welcome. And then yeah, good luck. Bye.